all in your head. What if they could make voices appear in people's minds? It gets hinted at in certain movies. X-Men and other superhero ones come to mind, of telepathy and the extraordinary skills of a distinct few to be able to intrude upon people in a most personal way. In the real world, however, we usually put it down to schizophrenia or some kind of mental disorder. But when you factor in technology and what is said to be around, the idea and subject gets a little more interesting. The tech is very specific, voice to skull, V2K, and is capable of transmitting voices directly into people's heads. It does sound crazy, doesn't it? But so does the idea of people hearing voices that have no apparent originating source. Before I knew of the technology, I had already factored it in as a possible explanation. The one case that started my line of thought was the real life story behind the Amityville horror, with the eldest son killing his whole family. And although it's been dismissed as a lie and seemingly just to create a horror franchise from, I gave it more thought. Because I always wondered if they might just run tests on a few unsuspecting people here and there. Of course they do. But who on and why them? What might be gained from people thinking they hear voices that they aren't able to distinguish as external and not part of their own internal monologue? Well, I figured if you wanted it to appear as though there was a mental condition you could label and medicate, you need patience. So what better way than to have a few serious examples to hold up, where the patients are indeed experiencing it, then go for help. The DeFeo case from Amityville, however, made me also think it's something you could use to frighten people, like in those movies. Partly for the film and entertainment industry, but it also preys on people's fears and superstitions. Perhaps it is a branch of MK Ultra, and those smaller events are part of the bigger picture at play, rolled out later in school settings perhaps, as well as others. Another angle I suspect ties in is when it comes to hearing what people call religious voices. Because I always thought it funny when it was people hearing those in the clergy, it was fine. But other ones not so much. And of course, you could say it's the content of the message or information you hear that determines its source and whether you should listen or pay attention. But is it? So, if you did have lots of people who were able to receive communications, and they didn't really know where they were coming from, would it be an advantage to encourage many to believe they were false messages, or they had gone mad, and then disrupt their mind with drugs or put them into an institution to study them, tell them they are just intrusive thoughts, and that they aren't real because it's in their head? But just as Dumbledore said to Harry, just because it's happening in your head doesn't make it any less real. And we saw portrayed in The Matrix, where the understanding and concept of real was entirely in their heads while in the system. People can also have false memories implanted, be hypnotised or influenced, conditioned, or trained to believe or think certain things. So is our own rendition of our own lived experience and lives even reliable as a source of information? Are we able to pick up on other things around us, experiencing them as sounds, voices, frequencies, or ideas? I wonder, because if some people did have that kind of ability, it seems like something that might be discredited or commandeered for other purposes.